Hello, everyone. I'm Kim Trathen, business and marketing coach, and this is the next segment of Girls Talk Business. So today I'm going to have Heather Cameron on with me, and I am just waiting to get notification that Heather is on. Heather, when you join this, go ahead and comment so that I know that you're here. I'm going to send her a quick message from my Chromebook, so bear with me. And today it was kind of ironic timing that when Heather submitted her application to Girls Talk Business, as part of her application, she had included in there that she kind of stepped away from her business for a couple years and worked it part-time. She wasn't as focused on her business growth because she had to care for her parents, and she ended up losing both of her parents in the last 13 months. And I just posted a few minutes ago, oh, Heather is here. I'm going to bring Heather on a minute. Heather, you should get, it says it's adding you. You should have a notification that then you accept. So I'm just going to chat a minute here longer. Once Heather's on, then you'll see us in split screen. So if you didn't see my other post, this one is a little bit emotional for me because I just lost my dad 2 days ago. And I hemmed and hawed if I still wanted to do this live today or not. I do truly believe that your personal life comes first, and when you're dealing with grief and you're trying to run your business, it can be a really difficult juggling act. And I decided it felt really important to me to still do this live today. And, oh, Heather, it looks like I'm going to bring you on again. I got notification that it looks like you accidentally declined coming on. So adding you again. I just resent it. You should have it in just a second. So I decided for me, it felt really important to still do this live today. I truly believe that everything happens for a reason. And the connection that I felt, I just think it's very ironic that Heather is the guest that I chose to be on the segment today. And for those of you that don't know, I planned these out in advance. So I had no idea what was going to happen with my dad at the time that I scheduled Heather to be joining the live today. So I sent Heather a message and wondered if she was okay talking about dealing with grief while you're running a business. It says it's adding you, Heather. Let me know if you have any issues on your end. And Heather said that oh, there she is. Hi, Heather.
There we go. Hi.
Welcome. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. Excellent. So welcome. I'm really happy that you could join me. I was just giving everybody a little introduction to a little bit of a background of your story about taking a little break from your business while you cared for your parents. Mm-hmm. And I was just telling everybody that I just lost my dad 2 days ago. But it felt really important to me.
Very
Thank you. Thank you. It still felt really important to me because I think grief is something that can be really difficult to deal with no matter if you run a business or you don't, or you have to take care of children or go to a job. And it's really hard and nobody knows what to say and what to do, and everybody grieves differently. For me, it just felt really important to have this discussion with you, and I felt really drawn to you and, the synchronicity of it all, of having you on when you've dealt with this, and now it happened to be on this date when it was scheduled so long ago. So I'm really happy that you were willing to still come on and talk about that and share a little piece of your story too. Would you mind first sharing about your business and give a little background about that so everybody knows who you are and what you do, and then you can talk a little bit about your situation with your parents?
Absolutely. So my business it's kind of got two names. My actual official tax name is Horizon Performance Insight, which I started 14 years ago. And in that time, I was focused initially on, it's been 14 years. It surprises me many times when I say that. I initially started in leadership development and facilitation and working with teams and taking the private industry experience I had and did a lot of work in healthcare and international development. And from that, I did that for a while. And one of my clients was the CEO of a hospital. And he said, you should be a coach. What's coaching?
Oh, wow.
I didn't really at the time have a great understanding of what it was. I kind of knew. And he had gone through a program for executive coaching. And so I went through that. And that's where I kind of turned my business into more of a coaching business. I still do a little bit of leadership development, but much more focused on coaching. And that's where Ignite Your Market comes from. That's my coaching side of my business. And I've been working with on and off is what we'll talk about, really, where life gets in the way of your business and you have to make hard decisions.
Yeah.
Working with entrepreneurs, excuse me, and doing that kind of focusing on coaching and helping women in particular, women over 40, which I think have these wonderful skills to offer the world, but they don't have a lot of business training, and they don't have a lot of, we're getting shitted to death. Everybody's telling us what to do. And we need a barometer to be able to say, is that right for me? Or is that something I'm going to do later? Or however we're going to position it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So Ignite Your Market is the coaching side of your business, and then Horizon Insights, or Horizon Performance.
Horizon Performance Insights is my leadership development. Okay. I haven't actually done a lot in that in the last little while, but it's still there. It's still my legal name. But yes, so that's why some of my pages have both names on it, just because of the way things got set up. But but Ignite Your Market is my coaching side of my business. It's my entrepreneurial side of my business. Yes.
Oh, awesome. And remind me, where are you located? Where do you live now?
I'm in Ottawa, Canada.
Oh, you are in Canada. Okay.
I am in Canada.
Excellent. Excellent. Who's ever joining us and watching, I think if Karina is still on, I know she's also in Canada. If you're catching the replay, please drop a comment and let us know where you watch from. I love to see how far the segments go, and it's fun to see what parts of the world people tune in from. So Heather, do you mind talking a little bit about the story with your parents and what you dealt with? I know you mentioned in your application that you kind of hit caregiver burnout, which is very difficult to deal with.
Yeah, no, I went through probably, I would say 5 years of a period of time where initially it starts slowly. You start to be the caregiver. And because both my parents my mom lived till 89 and my dad was 90. So they were older and they had very different care needs. So my mother had much more of what we're almost anticipating and expecting. She had heart issues and she had eventually dementia. And it's the slow goodbye. So tough. I have to say, being both, the slow goodbye is a very difficult one. And then my father's health he became disabled. He ended up being in a wheelchair. He couldn't walk, but cognitively he was still there. And his job in life was to take care of my mom. So keeping them together was a huge fight. Our system is very different than yours. So we're publicly funded for health. You still have to look at where you care for them, and keeping them independent and together was a lot of work. It was a lot of advocating, and my father's health was quite complex. So with my father's health, there was a lot of advocating and a lot of pushing through the system to really get them, and then fighting the system together. So they did live in, as much as I was their prime caregiver, they did live in a retirement residence, but it still required, some days I would be there 8 hours a day, right? And you know, the most I ever got it down to was visiting every second day. Right? And it was exhausting when you come out of it, as my mom's disease was exhausting in one way, in that, you know, she had vascular dementia, so you forget to turn around. She forgot how to turn. They turn around and she's like, I don't know. She never forgot us, which was, she forgot how to speak. She forgot all of those body functions, but she still had recognition.
Wow,
and my father was, again, a physical thing where he had to be transported. So it was tough. And to come back and sit down and say, I got to work on my business today.
When you're emotionally drained and emotionally exhausted, I feel like sometimes all you want to do is sleep, or you just want to sit down and think about nothing. It's really hard to go through that type of emotional strain, drain, grief, all of that, and then find the energy to even focus on, what am I going to do to build my business? Who can I connect with? Because you don't feel happy and joyful inside. You feel stressed or sad or mad, or all of those different emotions that come along with it.
And when you're coaching, you know, I've thought, if I had more of a functioning business, right? Do X, put X together, Y, go out the door. That it would have been easier. But when you're coaching and you're trying to help and give yourself to others, in some respects, I run an accountability membership. I kept it very quiet, but I kept it running during most of that period. And that was almost a salvation, because it always brought me back to my roots of, this is what I do, and to see them still progress. I didn't grow it. I kept the core that was there, but to see them still progress and still go and still feel that part of myself was still viable and there and alive was very helpful. And I kept a lot of, I did keep doing a lot of networking. So physical networking, going to events just to get out of the house and find that. But it was the working on my own business that was the most challenging.
Yes. Right? And that's what my dad just became really sick. There was a slow decline over the last year, but he became really sick just on June 8. And when he went into the hospital, the doctors thought it was a Friday at late afternoon that he went to the hospital, and he ended up getting admitted. And they were talking about him getting released on Monday, maybe Tuesday at the latest. And he had gotten admitted for a UTI infection, which ended up going septic. And when it goes septic, it's in the bloodstream. It affects all the organs in the brain. And that was really, really difficult to watch because he was having constant hallucinations. He didn't know who my children were. He seemed to know who I was most of the time when I went there, but I would kind of give him all the information by saying like, "Hi, Dad, it's your daughter, Kim." So he didn't have to, I don't think he could, I know he couldn't think of my name because when my mom showed him a picture, he did not know my name. And that was really difficult. And this is only, and less than a month later, he ended up passing away. He did survive the sepsis and got released from the hospital, and we had to put him into a nursing home. And then he really rallied for 2 days. It was amazing. And we thought we had time left with him. We thought that because he was doing so good and good spirits, and we really thought that, boy, he might live in this nursing home for 6 months, a year. We thought we had time, and it turned out to only be about a day and a half where he was with it enough to carry on a conversation, and then he just went downhill. There were 3 different staff members at the nursing home that in the hours before he passed away said, "I didn't work at all last week. I wouldn't have even recognized him. I can't believe this is the same man." It was crazy. And I've since learned a lot more about kind of that surge of energy towards the end of life. And I think that's really what we were witnessing. But it's difficult too, because I know if we had had more time, in some respects that could have been harder if we were watching him struggle that whole time. I did not want to see him struggle any longer, but in the same respect, we all feel shocked. Like, how did he just pass away? He just went to the hospital June 8th. It was a UTI. I mean, somebody passes on, there's always that sense of shock. Oh, Heather, did I just lose you? Can somebody watching drop a comment? I'm wondering if you guys still see us in split screen or if I lost her. I wonder if she lost her connection. I'm going to continue talking right now. Heather, drop a comment when you're back on, or if somebody else can drop a comment and let me know if you still see both of us or if you only see me, because I don't hear Heather either. So when you're running your business, I know I did a post recently in one of the big entrepreneurial groups about running a business and dealing with grief. And it can be very difficult, but I will confess too that there were some days when my dad was in the hospital that sometimes running my business and working on something for my business, or I've been offering free social media assessments, and if I had one of those scheduled, it was almost a welcomed reprieve for me. You only see me? All right, we'll wait for Heather to get back on. She must have had, hope she didn't have an internet issue. Hopefully she can join us. Otherwise, I'll wrap up the call. Oh, good. Heather's back. I'm going to bring her back on. This is the going live, and this is what terrifies some entrepreneurs about going live. Heather, it says it's adding you. Sometimes there are internet issues. For some reason, last week, our feed was all crazy. And I just want everybody to know, if you haven't gone live and you're nervous about it, it's okay. Like, sometimes technology glitches and you just roll with the punches and you figure it out. Nobody expects everything to run flawlessly when you're going live, because there are things that are just out of your control. Heather, it says it's adding you. So as I was saying, there were times that working on my business was a welcomed reprieve, because it gave me something other than my dad's medical issues, his declining health, the hospital, dealing with hospice, the social workers, everything that's involved with it. My work gave me something else to focus on. So in one respect, sometimes your business can kind of feel like this island of reprieve, because there's not, you can almost separate yourself when you start working on your business. All right, Heather, I'm going to try again. It said no answer. All right, it says it's adding you, Heather. So let me know. Wondering if she's having a Wi-Fi issue. So anybody else that is watching the live right now, if you feel comfortable sharing, I think everybody out there has experienced grief at some point in time. And I'm wondering if you found what you might have found that was maybe an unexpected welcome reprieve when you were dealing with your grief. Oh, good. I see Heather again. You're back.
Sorry, it went pause. It said Facebook had paused and it kicked me off.
I wonder if it was, I wonder if your Wi-Fi had an issue, because I think that can happen.
I'm right beside it, so who knows?
Yeah, you're back. That's all we care about. You're back.
I'm back.
So losing both of your parents 13 months apart, were you able to focus on your business much during that 13 months when you had lost one parent and then were still the caregiver for the other?
Initially, no, because what happened was similar to what you were saying. My mom died of sepsis as well, so she had a UTI. UTI is one of those things that people don't realize until you have seniors in your life.
Yes.
If anybody out there does, it is a huge. It's like 13 or 15% of people die from UTIs. It may even be higher. And
which you just don't know until you go through that. You have no idea.
Absolutely. I'm just going to cut one thing out that might be causing problems. And
okay.
When my mom passed, my father got very sick shortly after. He had pneumonia. And then, so he's in the hospital with pneumonia. He recovered from pneumonia, and then he was back in with a GI bleed. So it was 2 months of pure just hospitals and then doing all that stuff. So it took, probably after my mom passed, it took about 3 or 4 months, and then we hit a nice rhythm. My dad's health was doing okay, and we hit a nice rhythm, and I was able to get back to that. And then similar to what you're saying, my father actually was doing okay, and he got pneumonia just January 2nd. And went in the hospital, and he was in for 3 weeks. His pneumonia had resolved. He was very delirious. He always had delirium. So I know what you're talking about, the not recognizing and all that stuff. And he came out with the anticipation that maybe he'd live for a couple of more weeks, and he passed away the next morning.
Wow.
So it's no matter what you do, that grief of somebody dying is shocking in the moment.
Yes.
My mom, she went into a coma and took 5 days to pass, so there was a lot more time to digest hers. My dad's was very shocking in the moment. And I found at that time I needed, like you said earlier, grief is different for all of us. Grief is a journey that we each have to take in our own way. And I found after my dad passed, it was different losing someone who was there than someone who had been through the journey of dementia. It's a very different experience.
Yeah.
When you have a long, John Arden's a singer in Canada, and she calls it the long goodbye, that's what dementia really is. But when my father, it was much more rapid. I found for a month afterwards, I just I felt untethered. I felt unconnected, and I kind of floated. And then slowly it came to the point where it was easier to come to work. I didn't have the caregiver brain anymore. I was just talking to somebody before I came in. I could turn off my phone. When you're on emergency for 2 years where you can't turn off your phone and you can't leave it in another room, I kind of regained me. And so it's been a journey of regaining me and regaining the business and getting focused on that and being energized by it and not having something else taking away.
Yeah.
But it's a different journey for each person.
It is. And I think part of it for me too, like there's always that feeling of how short life is. Even if somebody has lived a full life, when they pass on, it makes everything feel just like we don't have as much time out there, and we should be doing what we love, and we shouldn't be staying in a job that we don't like or feeling that we don't, we're not living out our purpose. And I think there's something about watching somebody become ill or watching somebody actually pass over. It's just that reminder of how short life is and how important it is to truly spend your time doing what you love. I feel like in a sense, some extra motivation comes out of that to continue working on the business, continue growing, continue networking and things like that. So it is different for everybody. And I think, what was that?
I was going to say, my father was a serial entrepreneur, literally he only ever once worked for somebody else. He only ever once worked for somebody else for long before, like when he was in his 18. And then he owned a gas station, then he ran a plumbing contracting business. And he did that till he was 62. And then he retired and drove my mother crazy for about 2 years and bought a maple syrup farm. And he ran a maple syrup farm, which is a very seasonal business, but a very intense business until he was 84.
Wow.
Until his body
That's
gave up.
right.
He would have worked till the day he died.
I remember you saying, maybe it was in emails that we had, I'm not sure now, but so which business was it that you worked for at a very young age when you would help him out at one of his businesses?
I worked for his plumbing contracting business at a young age. I answered phones. In those days, people wouldn't, believe it or not, in those days, people would not leave messages on an answering machine.
Oh, really?
So he bought one of the very first answering machines, and nobody would leave a message on the answering machine. And
Oh
I'm the
my
youngest.
gosh.
So by the time I reached the age of, I was a director of his company at 16 or something like that, just from a tax perspective. But I actually did
Yeah.
work and I answered the phones. And because they were more mobile, they wanted to be out and they had an answering service because that's what you had to do. But if I was
Hmm.
home, they didn't have to pay the answering service. So I answered the phones from probably the age of 14 or 15 or
Wow.
16 and took messages and did that. And I helped my aunt was my very family run business. My mom was an accountant bookkeeper, so she did all the books. My aunt was my dad's secretary who came in once or twice a week. So I would help her file stuff and do stuff like that. So the business was, because it was run in our basement, which was very unheard of in those days, it was intricate to my life. And
Yeah.
because plumbing contracting is an emergency based business, right?
Hmm.
Somebody's basement is flooding, something's happening,
Yep.
got used to being woken. It was a very different rhythm than a lot of businesses
Hmm.
have. So I grew up in a very entrepreneurial business where you just didn't know if the phone was going to ring. And the only way my dad could get away from it was to leave. So we had a cottage and he would go off to that and someone else would be on
Oh
call
yeah.
because otherwise he could go out any day of the week. If there was an emergency, you go, right? And that's
Yeah.
a different type of business than what most people experience.
Yes, it is. It is. I would also love to chat a little bit about you had put in your application, and we had talked about this before. This was going to kind of be more of our main focus before I messaged you about my dad passing. Um, but you were running your business and you had some really great clients. And I think you even said you were making, over six figures, and then you lost those clients. Can you talk a little bit about that and what was going on and now how you're in the rebuild after that?
Absolutely. I really was doing everything right. As I said, that time I was really doing leadership development, business development, and I had coaching clients. So that's when I was transitioning between the two. And I had found a kind of a core in healthcare, in different methods of healthcare, of helping and coaching in those businesses. And I had, I think, 3 or 4 clients at the time. I had a hospital, major hospital. I had a major company. I was doing work with an NGO, non-government agency, so
Hmm.
non-for-profit. And I had one other. And I had expected one of them to end. And I was on the board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce. I was very active. I was very out networking. I was very well known. But I didn't necessarily have a funnel because I didn't need one. There was no more hours in my day. I was making what I could. I was
Right.
comfortable with where I was. And then what happened was one of them went bankrupt, unexpected. One of the CEO was replaced at the hospital. And guess what? If you're consulting to the CEO, when he's replaced, it's very unlikely you're going to maintain your contracts. One of them ended expectedly, and the other one didn't as well. So all of a sudden, everything just fell out of my business within a 2 or 3 month period. And I was like,
Wow.
okay. And I didn't have a marketing funnel. I didn't have a marketing machine. All of that business was won by being out networking at events, by being part of the Chamber
Hmm.
of Commerce. But I became
Yeah.
so much part of the Chamber of Commerce that people thought I was the Chamber of Commerce. So there can
Oh,
be a
wow.
cost to over committing yourself to an organization. I was on the
Hmm.
board. I had helped out with some when the president went away. I actually ran the office for a couple of months to help them out, and it became diluted in what my message was. And
Hmm.
all of a sudden, I'm off. I don't have a funnel. I don't have a machine, and it was like, okay, and start to rebuild. So
And
that
what
was
was the timing of that compared to dealing with your parents?
it was probably a year before,
Oh,
or 2 years
wow.
before, around the same time. It was when their health was definitely deteriorating. Because I remember when the client who went bankrupt did some really stupid things and accused people of stuff and all the stuff you do when you're panicking.
Oh,
And I had been with my parents, but they were still living independently, but it was probably their last year.
okay.
And then they moved
Wow.
in. So it was the beginning of it all as well. So it was
Hmm.
building up that funnel again and trying to figure out. I did step back a bit to say whether I wanted to do the leadership development and the corporate stuff or whether I wanted to do the business coaching, which was easier to manage with my parents. It's more, some of the corporate
Yeah.
contracts require a lot more presence at a time where you have to work around their schedule. Why, when you're doing your business coaching, you're working with your clients to find the right schedule for both of you. So it was a
Hmm.
lot easier to schedule
Yes.
things on that, which is another reason I went that way. But I did have to rebuild my funnel. I did go off and I didn't mention this, but I tried another avenue in my business that didn't work out. So I kind of went on a tangent. If I knew what I knew today, I would have done it differently.
Yeah.
And there's more stuff
Hindsight's
available.
always
But I
2020.
had Absolutely. But I had spent some time looking at franchise businesses. So coaching people about
Oh,
whether
okay.
to, because I had a lot of experience from franchising, whether to buy
Hmm.
franchises or not. But there's a lot of history in the franchise world. And with an online presence, you could probably be a disruptor, which is what I was trying to be. But it was hard to be a disruptor in just doing trade shows and things like that, which I did do. So
Yeah.
I did that, and that's when my parents started to get ill, when that just needed more attention, and I really couldn't put it. So that was one of those
Hmm.
mistakes, learning mistakes, we put aside, and we learn and we go on from that. So
Yep. Yep, definitely. So what would you say to the entrepreneur that is maybe who you used to be, where they don't have a funnel in place and they have their clients, so they feel like things are good? What would be some of your advice for somebody that's in that situation thinking, well, I don't really want a funnel because I can't take any more clients right now? What do you think, looking back, having gone through it, do you have any clarity on it or advice that you would give somebody who's in that situation right now?
well, the first one would be never take your eye off marketing, never lose your message. Because
Yeah.
that's really, if it wasn't even so much that I didn't have a funnel, I wasn't pushing my message. I wasn't being clear on what it was, because people knew enough about me, and there were enough people who knew me that would hire me. Like, it wasn't, I didn't need a clear message in a way. In another
Hmm.
hand, it made it a lot harder to come and rebuild things because
Right.
of the association I had with Chamber and with other people. So, you always have to have that clear marketing message, and you always have to nurture your list. If you have a list, and you don't have to have a list, right? I mean, the concept of a list is a very online marketing thing.
Yes.
If you're marketing at networking events and building it locally, and that's what your business is about, you still have to maintain that marketing. You still
Hmm.
have to get up and be you have to be engaging, and you have to have those
Yes.
conversations, right?
And I
And I
feel
had
like
built a
kind of
lot.
the list and the in-person marketing, it's kind of like two different legs of the stool that they
Yes,
each bring a different important piece, and it depends on where you're spending your time for your business. Are you working locally and meeting people face to face? But they're kind of two different legs of the stool in my mind.
absolutely. And then there's nothing wrong too, and that's what I learned too with this. You can be fully booked, and you may not want to change your model, right? I mean, you can go
Hmm.
from that one-on-one model to a different model that might not be part of your business, but you can still say to somebody, not now. I can add you to my schedule in 2 or 3 months. If you can't wait, that's okay. But if you can, and I'm worth your time. So no doesn't have to be no now, right? No
Yes.
doesn't have to be an and no. It can be, I mean, we'd all love to be in the situation, no matter what our programs are made up of, to be fully booked, and to
Right.
say no, I can't do something until 3 months from now or whatever. But it would be, it's having that funnel and understanding what you sell. And when I was doing, because what I was doing at the time was very individual, it was very it was much more in the consultant form, where you get their needs and you determine it. So it wasn't selling a product, it was selling a
Hmm.
consultancy, a leadership development, and each one was individual. So I didn't really have that package. So I'm a big advocate about packaging yourself. Doesn't matter
Yes.
whether you're selling to corporate or whether you're selling to a individual entrepreneur. You still can sell a package, right?
Hmm.
And the package can be customized, but that would have been another part of it. It would have been easier to say, these are kind of, here's an example of the packages that I have, and
Yes.
here's the type of bidding. I do live in a government town, which puts a whole different game on it. Ottawa is the capital of Canada, so there's a lot of government contracts here. And even
Okay.
when you're not working in the government, there's a lot of residual. When you start looking at that corporate level, there's a lot of residual in how they want to go about the process,
Hmm.
because the government has put that in. So that changes things a bit, but definitely just keep your message strong. Like, always think about your
Yes.
message. Always think the person you're talking to knows your next customer.
Hmm.
So to me, it's not the person you're talking to is your next customer, because that's not necessarily true, but the person you're talking to knows your next customer is a
Yes, I
really
love
good
that.
way
I
to
love
present
that.
yourself.
Yes. What great advice. And, closing up here, wrapping up our conversation, talking about the grief again. And obviously, we've talked about everybody grieves differently. Do you have any advice for, me or anybody else dealing with grief and trying to run your business at the same time? Anything that, looking back since you've been through it, where you thought, oh, that was really helpful, or oh, that wasn't so helpful?
Um, One would be kind to yourself. right? I think we have this push, this even what you said earlier about, the fact that it's kind of renewed your energies in some respects. It's be kind to yourself. The moments happen at the most unexpected times, right? I've been in
Yes.
the car and
Oh,
all of a sudden
yes.
a memory triggers and I've got tears in my eyes and I'm like, where'd that come from, right? So the moments
Yeah.
happen at the most unexpected times, and you just have
Hmm.
to be, if you don't have the gumption at the moment to do something, then do something else, right?
Yeah.
Go for a walk with your kids, play with your dog, do something else,
Hmm.
um, because the moments are going to happen. But the reality of it is those moments they won't go away, and the grief doesn't, it just changes,
Yeah.
right? But it's also just saying, each day is going to get a little bit more focused on your business, a little bit more. And the process, I mean, your father just passed away so soon. You still have to
Yeah.
go through planning, and I'm assuming that you have your funeral to plan, and then there's just estate stuff can consume,
Yeah.
right? Even if you're not necessarily directly involved, there's the elements of that has to be dealt with.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, there's a
so
lot. Mm.
allow yourself. There is a lot.
Yes.
There's a lot more than people expect. From a business perspective, I think what you're doing is very courageous, which is
Oh, thank
being
you.
open and honest about it,
Yeah.
right? Because that allows your audience, your clients, your prospects, your tribe, your community, whatever you call them, to sympathize and to be, yeah, this just happened to me.
Yeah.
And so allow that to be honest and to, this is what it
Yeah.
is. We hide grief in our society, and it's silly because it happens to every single one of us,
Yes.
right? It's something we can guarantee is going to happen, sadly. But
Yeah.
so, yeah, just your honesty, very good.
Oh, thank you. Well, I feel like it's really important to have those conversations. And I personally find it healing to talk through things. I know not everybody is like that. I do like to talk things out and hash things out. But I do think there is this stigma. And I think probably everybody feels it to a certain degree, whether they work for somebody or they are the owner. But I think especially too when you're running a business, there's still this stigma out there that everything always has to look fabulous. And I don't know if social media has made that more pronounced, but it just feels like everybody, there's this sense that things have to be running perfectly or maybe you're failing at your business. And we all deal with life and we all deal with grief. We all have, women have husbands walk out on them, or there's abuse situations, there's death, there's childhood illnesses, there's so many things that people deal with. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows that when you're dealing with something, it doesn't mean you're failing as a business owner. You can still run your business, and if you need to take a small break and step away or work with fewer clients or wait to launch your program. I've been thinking about putting together a program, and over this last month I said I just can't even work on that right now. That was something where I thought I need to step back right now. I love doing the Girls Talk Business series. It feels amazing to me to connect with women. So I knew this was something that I wanted to continue even when my dad was sick, but trying to write, launch, promote, and start a new program, that couldn't happen for me during that time or even in these next few weeks. So I think knowing your limits, knowing your boundaries, and just being open about what's going on, I think it can only help everybody, and it helps remove a little bit of that stigma about, you're not failing just because you're dealing with something in your personal life. You're not failing your business just because of that.
Well, and also time is short it's long in the moment, but short in reality. So,
Yes.
I took 2 months, when I look back, not just, with my father's health, but from January to end of March with his health, I did almost no particular work. I did keep with a few things like you that felt good, that managed it. But 3 months in the life of an entrepreneur is a very short period of time. In the moment, it seems like a long period of time, but it's a short
Yes.
period of time. And I'm a better business person and a better coach for allowing myself that time than if I tried to work through that time and present myself in a way that was not authentic and not of value, because it would have been half-hearted and my energy would have been low, and so many things about that wouldn't have been there. I'm hoping to, in the next month or two, launch a podcast, which I've been thinking about for 2 years.
Awesome.
But 2 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to commit to the need to be there every week and doing the recordings and figuring in the work behind it. But now I am. Right now I have the energy, I have the desire, I have the want. There was one thing I wanted to share just when you were saying something about failure. There was a girl who was an Olympian who spoke on the radio the other day, and she's a pole vaulter. And she said she was asked, what do you want to share with young people? And her comment was that you're going to fail more than you'll succeed.
Yes.
And that you'll learn from it. And when you think of pole vaulting, they finish by failure, right? Because they keep trying till they can't jump anymore, and the event is over when everybody can't jump.
Yeah.
Right? And
oh, it's so
her comment
powerful.
was really good, because we have to keep jumping. We have to keep trying, and we have to keep jumping and trying to jump over that pole. And things are going to happen that cause us not to jump well that day, which is kind of what death is and what grief is and what all of the things you mentioned are. There's things that happen in our life that cause us not to be able to jump like an entrepreneur over the pole that day, and that's okay.
Yes. Oh, I love that. That's so powerful.
Yes, I can't remember her name. I got to hunt it down because it was a really powerful, she's not that old, but it was just a really powerful look at how things are and an event that really is based on failure.
Yeah, if you look up her name, share it in the comments.
I will.
That would be great. That would be great. Well, Heather, thank you so much for joining me today. It was absolutely wonderful. And again, I feel like everything happens for a reason. And I think you were meant to be my guest this week so that we could chat about grief and dealing with businesses while dealing with grief and moving through it, getting through it, whatever words you want to put on that. It's a terrible thing. We all go through it at some point in time. And it's tough and it's hard. And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and being open and honest about it. I really, really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And thank you on behalf of your listeners for being courageous enough to do this, because it's an important discussion and it's a hard thing to do.
Yes, of course, of course. Well, thank you so much. And we will stay connected, and I will make sure to include your social media links. I'll update the description to this video at the end, and I'll make sure to include your links. Everybody feel free. I hope you will check out Heather's website and connect with her on social media. And thank you again, Heather. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thanks very much. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.